Pan American gates are open. Buffalo Evening News, Wednesday, 1st May 1901. In bright sunshine and cool air, the Great Exposition begins its 6 months' existence, without formal ceremony. Attendance not large when gates open on account of the muddy conditions of the grounds. News reporter buys the first ticket of admission sold at the entrances, medical staff on hand. At 7:15 o'clock this morning, the gray clouds that trailed their humid draperies across the spires of the Pan American Exposition buildings parted for a moment. The sun was on the spore and seized the opportunity to present itself. In the moment, a flood of golden sunlight poured through the cloud drift. It kissed the golden goddess of light upon the electric tower and caused her to shine brightly to the remotest bounds of the city. It touched the sparkling towers of the buildings, and it lent each spire and dome a transient gilding. Its rays rested upon the blades of grass, the blooming flowers, and the swelling buds on the trees and shrubbery, covering them with a scintillating diamond solitaires and clusters until each spray trembled with proud agitation. The glory was a fleeting one, for the clouds thickened up again, only to be broken through again by the sun, which persistently renewed its efforts to shine benignly upon the Pan American's opening. At the moment of the official opening of the exposition, sunlight was brilliant. A news reporter bought the first paid admission to the grounds this morning and was set down for ticket number 2. He applied for a ticket at the Amherst Elwood gate at 7:15 o'clock, but the gate tenders informed him that the sale of tickets would not begin until 8 o'clock. Inspector Emery intervened at this point, and upon learning of the reporter's predicament, courteously volunteered to waive ceremony and ascended the admission fee, which was reserved by Inspector Emery until the ticket offices opened as the price of ticket number 2, while the reporter was passed inside. M.F. Cottrell, ticket seller at the Elmwood Amherst gate, is credited with 50 cents to pay for ticket number 1, which was sent to Mr. William Hamlin by Mayor Dahl yesterday. Tickets numbers 3 and 4 fell to 2 farmers from out of town. These men appeared at 7:30 o'clock and began clamoring to be admitted. They were told they couldn't buy a ticket until 8 o'clock. They waited around until ticket seller Cottrell climbed into the box. Then they demanded tickets. Numbers 3 and 4 were on top, and these were passed to them. They did not appreciate the honor of standing next to Mr. Hamlin very highly, for they insisted upon paying only 25 cents and passed through the turnstiles grumbling because they had to pay 50 cents. Grounds were muddy this morning after last night's rain, and visitors were few up till noon. A strange cosmopolitan medley presented itself at the Amherst Elwood gate at 8:30 o'clock. It consisted of 112 Orientals straight from the shores of the Mediterranean. In the group were Algerians, Tripolians, Tunisians, Georgians, Circassians, Arabs, and Egyptians, all clad in their national garb, and presenting a picturesque appearance. They were bound for the Midway and were admitted with passes. A quick trip through the exposition, being a brief description of some of the external beauties of the Pan American. At a stage setting for the events of opening day on this first day of May 1901, the Pan American Exposition formed a historical picture worthy of perpetuation in the archives of Buffalo. It was seen at its best by those who approached it this morning from the gateway at Lincoln Parkway, passing the twofold columns on either hand, surmounted by the national emblems and trophies and bearing the symbols of the Pan American states. The visitors obtained their first vista of the exposition. In the foreground stood the park lake, hemmed in by emerald banks. Beyond the approach that swept down to a left curve to the new park bridge and climbed the gentle eminence, fringed with shrubbery, misty green with opening buds. Across the lake, the government life-saving station with its red tiles was plainly seen on the right hand, and above the hill could be seen the marble New York State building on the left, the director's log cabin and fine arts buildings on the right, overlooking the lake. Straight ahead could be seen the towers and roofs of the other exposition buildings stretching out in a long line, a fascinating perspective of architecture and epoch. At the first approach, the visitor encountered one equestrian group of George Washington by sculptor Fritsch. It stood on a bluff. The sculpted groups of peace and power by Augustus Lukeman adorned the faces of the towers, and in various niches are the figures of truth, justice, liberty, hospitality, patriotism, tolerance, courage, and benevolence. At the base of the flagpoles between the pylons are groups representing the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, designed by Philip Martini. The most remarkable feature of the entire structure, however, are the 8 circular shields of bronze linked together by wire cables and suspended between the pylons of the bridge. The shields are 11 feet in diameter and are backed by flags, spears, and battle axes, all constituting the most unique bridge in the world. Under the causeway is a double grotto. It is large enough for boats to pass through. The sides are formed by the trunks of trees, and the roof bristles with stalagmites of various hues. Electric lamps at intervals illuminate the obscurity of the place. Buildings of the states and nations. On the right-hand side of the triumphal causeway are the various state buildings. Here are the Honduras, Cuban, Kansas, Chilean, Ohio, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin structures, together with that of the AOUW and the Maccabees. Southward are the 2 buildings of the United States Ordnance Exhibit. In this group is also the Forestry Building with its walls of logs laid like a Virginia fence and the Indian mounds. Here too is the village of the 6 nations, showing every type of log house known to the Indians of the powerful Confederacy that once dominated New York and Canada. Here also is the Palisade Village in which the Indians hold their councils and religious ceremonies. It contains a sweat house and 6 bark houses, 1 for each of the tribes of the 6 nations. It is occupied by about 10 pagan Indians of the Oneida, Senecas, Onondagas, Huron, and Iroquois, who give daily exhibitions of their ancient rites. Cross the canal from the 6 Nations village and reached by a bridge, the visitor passed to the fisheries wing of the government building. The 3 structures constituting the government group stand in a semicircle and are connected by colonnades. Events of the day at the Exposition. 8:30 a.m., gates of the Pan American officially open to visitors. 12 noon, government building opens. Address by General I.H. Brigham, Chairman of the Government Board. 2:30 p.m., concerts of the 65th and 74th Regiment Bands of Buffalo. 3 p.m., release of 5,000 homing pigeons carrying the news of the opening of the Exposition. 7:30 p.m., grand electrical illumination of all the buildings of the Exposition. 7:30 p.m., concerts by the 65th and 74th Regiment Bands of Buffalo. 11 p.m., gates of the Exposition close. By the Associated Press, Buffalo, New York, 6 September. Just a brief 24 hours ago, the newspaper of the city blazoned forth in all pomp of headline type, "The proudest day in Buffalo's history. Tonight, in sackcloth and ashes, in somber type surrounded by gruesome borders of black." The same newspapers are telling in funeral tones to a horrified populace the deplorable details of the blackest day in the history of Buffalo. From joy to horror. It was a few moments after 4 p.m. while President McKinley was holding a reception in the Temple of Music on the Pan American grounds that a cowardly attack was made. With what success, time alone can tell. Standing in the midst of thousands, surrounded by every evidence of goodwill, pressed by a motley throng, showered with expressions of love and loyalty from enthusiastic multitudes all eager to clasp his hands. Amid these surroundings, and with ever reoccurring platitudes of an army of sightseers ringing in his ears, the blow of the assassin came. And in an instant, pleasure gave way to pain, admiration to anger, folly turned to fury, and pandemonium followed. Tonight, a surging, swaying, eager multitude throngs the city's main thoroughfares, choking the streets in front of the principal newspapers, scanning the bulletins with anxious eyes, and groaning or cheering in turn at each succeeding announcement, as the nature of the message sinks or buoys their hopes. Editorial note: 1 week later, President William McKinley would die from his wounds from the gun of Leon Tolstoy. Farewell, City of Light, farewell. Pan American Exposition ends at 12 o'clock tonight in a blaze of glory. Don't miss the closing scenes. Buffalo Evening News, Saturday, 2nd November, 1901. Let us make merry today, for tomorrow it is ending. Such is the motto of the Exposition today. When the sun rises on the Rainbow City tomorrow, the Pan American will be among the things of the past. A memory, strong and new, but still a memory. Soon the wrecking will begin to destroy the handsome buildings. But they are not gone yet. The Exposition is not over yet. One day, part of a day, a night anyhow, is left, and much happiness, many joyous moments, much adventure can be crowded into day, night, or even a few hours. Every feature of the Exposition today and tonight will be favorable to the fun-loving element, and he who goes to the grounds and does not have a happy time may blame only himself, for the fun is not in him. The Midway tonight will in some ways surpass everything seen there before. The theaters will run later than usual. Everything will be wide open. Several concessionaires have announced their intention of cutting loose, which means, in effect, that there will be no limit set to the hijinks cut by the happy public, as long as the HP is able to foot the bill. Souvenir dealers will be giving away their wares today. People who desire some remembrance of the fair would better get it from the grounds. They can get their souvenirs at more reasonable prices, and they will help also swell the numbers of admissions. Everyone counts. The program is the best so far offered. Beginning at 10 o'clock this morning, the 65th Regiment Band played for 2.5 hours at the East Esplanade stand. The Indians will parade through the Midway and around the Court of Fountains at 1 o'clock. They will go to the stadium. An admission fee of 25 cents will be charged at the stadium, but the entertainment will be worth it. At 1:50 o'clock, the balloon ascension will take place, following 10 minutes later by a hurling game between the Cummings and the Hebrideans. At 3 o'clock, the sham battle between the Fort Porter troops and the Indians, the event of the season, will begin. Custer's charge and attack on the Indian village and other warfare scenes will be among the features of the battle. From 3 o'clock till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and from 8 till 10 o'clock in the evening, Victor Herbert's orchestra will play in the Temple of Music. The 65th Regiment Band will play at the East Esplanade Bandstand from 3 till 5:30 o'clock in the afternoon, and the 74th Regiment Band will play at the same stand from 6 to 7 o'clock in the evening. The fireworks will begin at 7:30 o'clock, lasting till midnight. At 11 o'clock, the closing exercises will begin in the Temple of Music. At midnight, 10 buglers in the tower will sound taps. At the last note, President Milburn will turn out the lights on the exhibit buildings and tower forever. It will be the end. But between the beginning and the end is the Midway. Don't miss it.